floor. You know the one. Step in front of a mirror and chant her name repeatedly. Upon uttering her name 3 times or 13 times depending on which version of the ritual you use, her apparition then appears to. She spent her short 5-year reign developing a fearsome reputation for burning many Protestants at the stake in her attempt to reverse the English Reformation. She'd arrange executions by fire. Background and origin story, you might start to question whether Mary was indeed a villain or if she was actually a victim of unfortunate circumstances. Before you think we're crazy, for even 16, Mary Tudor was the only surviving child of King Henry VIII and Queen Catherine of Aragon. Initially, life for her started out great. She was a little princess beloved by her mother, her father, and the people of England. There was just one problem. She was a girl. Realizing there may be no other children, mainly no sons, to inherit the throne, Mary's mother Catherine groomed her at an early age for a promising future as the Queen of England to be. Catherine taught her Latin, thought at the time to be a man's language, so that Mary could someday fulfill the most masculine of roles, that of a sovereign. Though Henry was proud of this daughter, her accomplishments wouldn't be enough for him later, and he'd still want a son. Being the daughter of the King of England and the Spanish princess, Mary also was considered a hot commodity for marriage. Her hand was often promised to sons of various rulers for sake of alliances and political gain. All of these betrothals fell through though. Legal age for marriage, her future betrothal was more seriously considered. Before she could embark into a successful marriage, however, something happened that would change her life forever. That is, her father fell madly in love with a woman, Anne Boleyn, and wanted a divorce with her mother. This was probably the biggest, most defining event for Mary due to the numerous repercussions that followed. It was from this moment on that Mary would never again experience a day of happiness. Mary's intense anxiety provoked a particularly nasty flare-up of agony in 1531, soon after Henry forced her mother, Catherine, to leave court while treating Anne as the new queen-to-be. When her father, Henry, granted himself his divorce after being denied by the Pope, he disregarded Mary as illegitimate, claiming that he never truly lawfully married her mother. He'd gone from being a loving and doting father to Mary in her early years to now being a vicious, neglectful parent. If you watched our other episodes, in order to divorce Catherine and marry Anne, Henry had to make some very drastic changes. That is, he had to separate England from the Roman Catholic Church and start his own new Church of England. Since Catherine had been a devoted Catholic and Mary had always followed in her footsteps, this was highly devastating for her. The new Protestant Reformation was yet another factor, a major factor, that added to Mary's profound grief, because her strong Catholic beliefs held significant meaning for her, and she refused to give them up. Many of the people of England loyally supported Mary, were on her side, and felt sympathy for both she and her ostracized mother. After all, she'd been shamefully brushed aside while being publicly humiliated and disgraced by the harsh neglect and maltreatment of her father. She'd been embarrassingly downgraded from the high rank of a princess to a servant for her half-sister, Anne Boleyn, and Henry's new daughter Elizabeth, who now possessed a claim to the throne above her. Mary was a shell of what she once had been, and would now have to witness as little Elizabeth enjoyed the charms of her old life. It's fair to say that Henry VIII was cold to the daughter he'd once claimed to adore, and naturally, Mary would have probably felt very jealous of Elizabeth, sad, neglected, and unloved. This was obviously turning its back on God by ridding the country of the Catholic faith. Many people asserted that Mary still had the rightful claim to the throne, even though she'd been stripped of her title as princess. The people had adored her mother Catherine as their queen, but they hated Anne for being, in essence, a homewrecker. For this reason, Anne was perceived as being the great whore, and Mary was thought to be a heroic symbol of rebellion among the English people. Not surprisingly, Mary's refusal to acknowledge the annulment of her mother's marriage and recognize Anne as queen and relinquish her own positions as princess greatly angered her father. During this time, Mary was in a very precarious situation. Her very existence was called into question with she was depressed beyond consolation and no longer believed there was a life for her in England. She wanted desperately to leave for her mother died, which struck her with further painful grief. She was depressed beyond consolation and no longer believed there was a life for her in England. She wanted desperately to leave for her mother's home country of Spain. But then something else changed. Anne Boleyn was ordered by Henry to be executed for allegations presumably staged against her. Mary was extremely pleased with Anne's death. She had absolutely despised her for destroying her life. It also gave Mary a new sense of hope for her future. Perhaps her father had changed his mind. At once, Mary wrote to him, hoping to be welcomed back to court and back in his good graces, but in return, Henry wrote that he was still displeased by Mary's stubbornness and still wanted her to submit to his law. Despite Anne Boleyn now being out of the picture, Henry continued to push that his daughter Mary recognize herself as illegitimate and her mother's marriage to him as having been unlawful. He forced her to sign a legal declaration of this. Mary was fully aware that she could be put to death if she didn't sign it. After all, if Henry was capable of killing his wife, he could certainly kill his daughter. For the Tudors, family drama could be deadly. And it wasn't just Mary's life at stake, but the lives of her most prominent supporters as well. Thus, Mary reluctantly signed the dreaded document against her conscience. As a reward, she was welcomed back to court, earned back her father's love, and was reinstated back into the line of succession. This brought her a decade of peace. You'd think it would have provided Mary with some form of for acting against her beliefs, the beliefs of God, and the beliefs of her now deceased mother, all to save her own skin and those of her friends and supporters. Yet, who can blame her? In many ways, though, she was her own harshest critic. Despite being back in good standing with her father, however, Mary still didn't marry during this time. This may be because, as we all famously know, Henry VIII was too busy collecting and discarding his own wives. Clearly, marrying off his first daughter wasn't much of a priority for him, so Mary remained single for a long time. Mary had also gained a brother, the son and heir that her father had desperately wanted, Edward VI. Mary was about 31 when her father died, and the young 9-year-old Edward took over as first in line to the throne. Mary was second in the line of succession, followed by her younger sister Elizabeth as ordered by Henry prior to his passing. But Edward, though very young, was a hardcore Protestant thanks to the influence that his advisors had over him. Thus, Mary once again fell into a threatening position due to her strong Catholic beliefs. This time, it was at the hands of her little brother, not her tyrannical father. Mary once again probably found herself in a familiar dark place, thinking there was no future and that her beloved Catholic faith would not survive this doomed world. Years of stress and the constant monthly pain she endured from her endometriosis took its toll on her, and she became a very weakened-looking and bitter woman. Thankfully for her, Edward's reign didn't last long because he became ill and died at the young age of 15. Not wanting his Catholic sister Mary to take over the throne, Edward had requested upon his dying breath that this Protestant cousin, Lady Jane Grey, succeed him. She would rule as queen for only 9 days before Mary's supporters rose up to help her take her rightful place on the throne. At the age of 37, Mary's reign as queen finally began. Mary entered London in a triumphant procession in 1553. The people of England wept tears of joy, elated that their beloved daughter of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon was finally taking her place on the throne. Little did the people know what was in store for them. They didn't seem to realize the extent of Mary's anger and contempt. She was a queen fueled by resentment and passionate religious obsession. She was determined to restore the Catholic faith and take revenge against those who had made her last 25 years so miserable, namely Protestants. She quickly became an unpopular queen with the initiation of her mass executions and burnings. To tie England with Catholicism even further, she finally got married to Philip II of Spain from her mother's native Catholic country. This, however, did not provide her with the happy life she so long desired. Though she adored her husband and was smitten with him, there is no record about how he felt about her in return, but we can speculate with a certain level of ease that he didn't feel the same way. One indicator of this has to do with rumors that were circling about Philip having a 38-year-old Mary was not exactly perceived as a gain, not for love. This is made all the more sad when you consider that she had also gone through a period of feeling unloved by her father. It seemed she couldn't catch a break. Life had not been good to her, and her misfortunes would only continue. Soon after her marriage, it seemed though her luck had changed. When she stopped menstruating, felt nauseated in the mornings, and gained weight, her royal physician suspected she could be pregnant. People rejoiced, bells rang, and there were celebrations held on the streets. Though she grew a belly, however, there was no baby. It is possible that she had a tumor, though many assert she was experiencing a phantom pregnancy, a conditional phenomenon thought to occur when no way to distinguish a false pregnancy from a real one, so were hired on standby to help care for the baby once it arrived. Letters announcing the birth and speculations were quickly spreading as more time passed. Maybe Mary had lied about being pregnant to give people hope for an heir. Maybe instead of a baby, Mary was carrying a monkey. Eventually, she had to come to terms with the fact that she was not really pregnant. After going through 2 false pregnancies, Mary faced the cold, hard reality that she would not have an heir. Her childbearing years were over. She was enraged with the idea that Elizabeth would succeed the throne after her. She hated Elizabeth as the daughter of Anne Boleyn, the woman who started all the misery in Mary's life. She was also incredibly jealous of Elizabeth because she possessed the two main qualities that Mary did not. That is, Elizabeth was both young and beautiful. After a short, disastrous reign, Mary died in 1558, most likely from ovarian cancer derived from her untreated endometriosis. Her vision for a Catholic England crumbled, and Elizabeth took the throne. Mary's husband Philip, whom she loved so wholeheartedly, wrote that he felt only a moderate grief for her. Mary was beguiled even after death because she was not buried next to her mother, as per her request. Instead, she ended up being buried next to Elizabeth. To make matters worse, the gravesite of Mary and her hated sister is a monument to Elizabeth, which completely overshadows her. Mary is commemorated only by a slab of black marble with the infamous name Bloody Mary on it. In this way, it seems that Mary has pretty much gone down as one of history's biggest losers. She had a terribly difficult life, fraught with grief, pain, and misery. On top
நாளைக்கே நான் இந்த பொண்ணை கல்யாணம் பண்ணிக்கிட்டு ஒரு வருஷத்துல ஒரு பொம்பளை குழந்தைய பெத்துட்டேன்னு வச்சுங்க, அம்மாவோட கொடுமையை நினைச்சா ரொம்ப பயமா இருக்குப்பா.
பொம்பளை புள்ள பிறக்கூடாதுங்கிறதுக்காக கல்யாணமே பண்ணாம இருக்க போறியா?
ஆமா.
அப்ப அதுக்கு ஒரு ஐடியா இருக்கு.
என்ன ஐடியா?
ஆம்பளை பையன் இருக்கிற ஒரு பொண்ணா பார்த்து கல்யாணம் பண்ணிக்க.
Arrian and Megasthenes, who came to India in 300 BC, have documented a total absence of the dowry system in India. Al-Biruni has observed the same. What our wine-sipping historians skipped telling us is, dowry was never an Indian custom. It was brought to India by the British. Till the late 19th century, while the British were civilizing us, dowry was a common custom back home in Britain. In India, the wealth of women was transferred from mother to daughter as Stridhan. Rural land was generally not tradable. Movable wealth was controlled exclusively by women. Stridhan gave women a high status in society. The British passed laws that made property tradable and that only males could inherit it. The Raj would confiscate your land if you did not have a male heir. This law made a male child imperative, which our historians chose to blame on backward Hinduism. More spouses are killed in the US for insurance money than in India for dowry. But no one makes insurance murders in the US a cultural crime. Colonial consciousness turns every crime into a crime of native culture, while in the master race, a crime remains an aberration, merely a criminal act. West has always mocked India for women's rights, while they were themselves Talibanized until the 19th century.